Good afternoon, and welcome to our Symposium on Campus Violence. All our participants today are students at Southern Arkansas University. Brandy Black, a senior broadcasting major, will discuss date rape. Richard Wyndham, secondary education major, will discuss assault. Diane Radford, a graduate student, will discuss drug and alcohol abuse as they relate to violence. Mike Lancaster, a junior pursuing a degree in broadcasting, will discuss campus security. I, Virginia Hicks, an elementary education major, am the chair of today's symposium. The level and intensity of violence has skyrocketed in recent years. Every day, violent acts are committed in homes, in workplaces, the restaurants, even in the post office. The college campus is not immune. Diversity of cultural background and attitudes on most college campuses create a potential for violence. Three attitudes that contribute to acts of violence are avarice, apathy, and despair. The spirit of avarice is prevalent in the person who is consumed with self-fulfillment at any cost, with no regard for who might be stepped on along the way. It encompasses greed and selfishness, self-centeredness. An attitude of apathy brings about an indifference to life. It strips an individual of loyalty, patriotism, or pride. Man overcome by a sense of futility or defeat, one who has lost all hope, is a desperate man. Despair will drive such a person to take any risk, reckless or violent though it may be, to bring about a change. Avarice, apathy, and despair, attitudes that contribute to the rise of violence on college campuses. Our focus today is Southern Arkansas University, and our first speaker is Brandy Black. Brandy.
When is sex considered sex, and when is sex considered crime or rape? According to a recent national survey, it indicated that 1 out of every 6 college women is raped on campus. And 9 out of 10 of these women know their assailant. And that's date rape. That's what I'm going to talk on. This is a horrifying problem, a real one, and a growing one. And contrary to what many believe, it does happen in Magnolia and at Southern Arkansas University. We aren't sheltered from this humiliating and brutal crime because we live in a small town or we attend a small university. Mary, a 19-year-old freshman here at SAU, experienced this. Took her 3 months to come to terms with it, but she did. She knew her attacker. She had had a crush on him for a semester, but he had always been dating another girl. Then Mary thought they probably broke up, so she kind of let the word out that she had a crush on David. They went out a few times, then one time they went to this big party at a lake around Magnolia. There were lots of other SAU students there. He decided that he wanted to take Mary and walk along the beach of the shore. I guess I should say shore, not beach. They were walking along, and then that's where it took place. He raped her, and she knew him. This was a guy that had carried her books for her to class, opened doors for her, had been a complete gentleman, but he took advantage of her. When she finally did come to terms with this after 3 months, she told a friend, someone that she thought she could trust, but word got out. Obviously, this friend couldn't be trusted. And it got back to David's old girlfriend, Tanya, and she came to Mary and she said, "Mary, let's talk about this, because he raped me too." That's pretty hard to take, but they talked about it and they realized that it wasn't their fault. no matter how they dressed or acted, it was the person that took advantage of them. It was their fault. They were the one with the problem. So David was then brought before court, but nothing was ever done because to prove date rape is a very hard thing to prove. The court is just virtually against women. And a USA Today magazine reported that every 21 hours that a female college student is raped on some college or university in the United States. And that's a pretty high statistic. And we might say, if we get better lighting, this might not occur, but that's not where date rape occurs. Date rape occurs when you go out on a date, go out for a Coke, go out for pizza, go to a party. And Mary's assailant didn't carry a gun or a knife. He had no aura of obvious malice about him. He was good looking, popular, maybe played sports on the weekends with his friends, was in a fraternity. He's what every American college student that's female needs to look out for. And that's a male college student, because you don't know who this could be. You don't know when it could happen. And a lot of us like to think, you know, that all these violent attacks are brought on our campus from outsiders that come onto the campus and beat you up or rape you or anything like that. And that's a very comforting thought, but we need to worry about what's going on within the college community. And that is date rape. That's scary, and we need to educate the women, college students, how to take care of themselves and how to make this a not so real problem on campuses. And this can be done by women who have done this, as shameful as they may feel, coming forward and talking to people, letting it be known, letting these crimes be reported. Only one rape was reported on the SAU campus since 1989. That's excluding the spring semester of '92. And we're not even sure if that was a rape from an outsider or a date rape. But if people will come forward and talk about their experience and let people know that it does go on here, then maybe we can put a halt to this.
Richard Wyndham is next to discuss assault.
Another form of violence that needs to be considered in today's symposium is assault. In the past 3 years, only 4 reported incidents of assault have occurred on SAU's campus. According to the statement of Alfred S. Reginary, that record is unacceptable. Mr. Reginary was the 1984 administrator in the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquent Prevention Program for the United States Department of Justice. He stated, "Any violence in school is unacceptable." In the same article, Crime and Violence in the Schools, dated January 24, 1984, the statement of Albert Shanker, President of American Federation of Teachers, delivered a clear message. I think that if the issues of safe schools is not dealt with effectively, the result will be the demise of public education in this country. From Mr. Shanker's 1984 report to the House Subcommittee, I read, a general conclusion can be drawn. The students who seem to cause the most trouble are the students who do not want to be in the programs at any school. I hope nobody here at SAU will fit into that category. I would like to remind all of you that at any time an issue, particularly one that has involved violence, arises, 2 sides of that issue will exist. To thoroughly analyze the situation, according to former President Lincoln, the different sides of that issue can be discussed. Sometimes that may mean one or more parties to a conversation may need to lay aside personal opinions long enough to wear the other person's shoes and walk around in them a while. Assault can be classified into two categories, a misdemeanor or a felony, depending upon the severity of the crime. A misdemeanor is a form of simple assault, and a felony is a more serious crime. For a person to be found guilty of a felony, sometimes motivation is considered. For a person to be found guilty of a misdemeanor, motivation is not even considered. It either happened or it didn't. Revenge for motivation is probably tops on the list for those acts. Revenge usually stimulates a felony charge or even a misdemeanor. Any crime of assault usually originates from three categories: spontaneous, planned, or aggravated. These categories can be further divided into two headings: unavoidable and avoidable. To avoid being a victim or assailant in any crimes that can be averted, learn to avoid circumstances that are conducive to violence. When laws are broken by the instructors or students, report the crime. We do have police authorities on campus. The judicial procedures on this campus are about the same as they are for any school. Fines, jail time, or both can be arranged at the local courthouse. In some more minor occurrences, a suspect may be dismissed from the college. We do need to avoid possible confrontations with our staff or fellow students and avoid all forms of violence. Last year may have been a model year of such compliance at SAU. No reports of assault have been recorded by the police to date. When we look at the big picture, we should try not to close our mind on any one given subject before making a final decision to act or speak. It's hard to create spontaneous violence when all persons can look at both sides of an issue with an open mind. Revenge and violence should be non-existent when dealing with an educated person. I know that sometimes any person can get aggravated. However, violence is not the answer. Martin Luther King once said, "We shall overcome." I would like to hear that read as we have overcome. We can and we must continue to live in harmony with ourselves and the world around us.
Diane Radford will now present information on drug and alcohol abuse as it relates to violence.
Drugs and alcohol as they relate to SAU campus violence. It has been estimated that 60% of SAU students drink alcohol at one time or another, according to a core survey done by Mark Walker, who is the Director of Alcohol and Drug Abuse here at SAU. Most of the students are under the ages of 21, and crack is probably the most prevalent drug on campus due to the price and the easy access. Crack is the popular drug going now, and there are crack houses around. The University Department of Public Safety prepares monthly reports of criminal activity on campus. And according to consequences reported last spring, 50% of misconduct reported was drug or alcohol related. Over the past 3 years, 32 burglaries, which is the highest ranking crime, though I'm not surprised, because most of the time the violators are looking for ways to support the habit. And also, 2 motor vehicle thefts were reported. Arrests were made for selective crimes over the past 3 years, which were alcohol violations totaled 12, 1 drug arrest, and 1 weapons violation. This survey has not been yet done for the 92 year, and I'm sure that more arrests have been made since we still have an alarming number of students using drugs and alcohol on the SAU campus. Most students believe that the average student uses alcohol or drugs at least once per week. At social gatherings, some of the students' views were 44% of the students preferred not to have alcohol available, and 88% prefer not to have drugs present. Drugs and alcohol is a real problem in our society today. A large percentage of the nation's crimes and deaths occur as a result of substance control. Abuse is also, many lives have been ruined and destroyed due to drugs and alcohol.
Mike Lancaster will come at this time and speak on campus security.
In the course of this symposium, we have heard about different types of violence. I would like to talk about what is being done to prevent these types of violence. Now, the fight against crime on the SAU campus is led by the Department of Public Safety. The DPS is made up of 4 officers. These officers are trained at the Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Academy, and they have the same authority and the same status and the same powers as any police officer in the state of Arkansas. Their jurisdiction is just limited to the SAU campus. Now, these officers, there are only 4 of them, so they can't provide coverage for the campus 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what they do is they work in shifts, and they try to have at least 1 officer on campus most of the time. But during the spring and fall semesters, there are about 8 hours a week where there's no law enforcement personnel on duty on campus. Those hours are usually during the week or during the daytime when most violent crimes or any other crimes are not likely to occur. And during the summer, the officers don't report for duty until 5 in the evening. But then again, there aren't as many students on campus, and crimes aren't likely to occur during the daytime in the summer. Now, the officers are known mainly on campus for giving parking tickets and traffic violations, but they do much more than that. They patrol the campus in their cars and on feet, and they assist students in many ways. They also walk through all the buildings and dorms at night and check to make sure that the doors are locked and that the people that are in there are the ones that are supposed to be in there. Now, the force is small, and it's not likely it's going to get any larger soon, although it's pretty obvious they need to add 1 or 2 more officers, but cost just won't allow it. But there are some improvements planned for the upcoming year. And a controversial issue is the issue of officers being given weapons to carry. And some people don't think it's necessary, but only trained officers will be able to use or able to carry guns. And, you know, a lot of people think that maybe having a gun will make it more likely for them to possibly shoot someone or be shot at, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Another improvement is the lighting situation on campus. There are several areas on campus that are poorly lit, and that could be a place where violence could occur because not many people would be around, and there would be an easier chance of not getting caught or being seen. Another thing that is overlooked is the lobby monitors. The people who sit in the lobbies of the dorms, especially the women's dorms, and check people in and out. Now, these people will be given a much more extensive training and be watched and supervised much more thoroughly. And if they are lax in their duties or unattentive to their duties, they will be reprimanded or dismissed. But the key to stopping the violence on campus is prevention. And the campus police, the DPS, would like more cooperation from the rest of the campus, some more campus programs such as maybe classes or seminars held by residence assistants or professors or organizations on campus, like maybe a self-defense class or different things that you can do to keep yourself away from violent situations. Another thing is student cooperation. It is estimated that most crimes and violence on campus goes unreported. And the DPS would really like people to report no crime is insignificant. They can decide which ones they can follow up on and should just be left alone, but they would like every crime to be reported. They also give some tips for people to stay away from violent situations. For women, or men as well, but especially for women, never walk alone on campus after night, because you don't know what's out there. And if you can't get someone to walk with you, you can call the DPS at their office at 4100 on campus, and they will gladly come and walk you to your car or your dorm. They also say that people should maybe carry mace or other instruments with them whenever they're walking, and stay in well-lit areas and walk in groups if it's at all possible. Now, it can't be stressed enough that cooperation is needed. The security force is small and it can use all the help that it can get. With more involvement from students, faculty, and staff, along with the efforts of the DPS, a safer learning environment can be provided.
This concludes the first segment of today's symposium. We will return shortly for an informal discussion on the areas addressed today. Welcome to the second segment of today's symposium. We will discuss informally the subjects presented earlier. Brandy, in your presentation on date rape, one thing I noticed it was not there was about prevention. Is there anything you can tell us that we might do to prevent date rape?
Well, I think it would be very naive to say that date rape is preventable, because it's really not. You don't know when it's going to occur or who it's going to occur to. Women can do things to not let their defenses down, such as not get drunk or be high on some kind of drug. They can know self-defense measures to protect themselves if they're ever in this situation, and they can know their date, but like the story I told, that really is not going to make a difference. So there are things a woman can do to protect herself, but to say that date rape can be preventable, I just don't think that's feasible.
Right. What kind of help is available to victims of date rape? What is the best method of recovery?
I think the best method of recovery is coming out of the closet, coming to terms with what happened to you, realizing that it's not your fault, that the other person, your assailant, has the problem. Maybe going to court if you feel confident enough and stable enough to withstand all the rigorous questioning that the attorneys may give you, and trying to help other people.
I agree with what Brandy said about date rape's it's not really preventable, or there's really no way you can guard against it. When I was talking to the campus security, they said the most important thing is you have to report it, and you have to report it soon after it happens, because it's not just the fact that it's going to be hard to prove in court, but if it gets out, people are going to know that guy was accused of raping the girl while on a date, and another girl's going to avoid going out with. And that's probably the only way you could stop it, and there's nothing that can be done to take that away from the girl, the feelings that she felt. And I mean, winning a court case would not help, or anything else, but yeah, the only thing that you can do is report it, and it'll get around that the guy, you may not want to go out with that guy, and then the girl hopefully would.
Thank you.
You're
Mike.
Brandy, do you think the chances of the assailant being convicted are really that slim?
I do. I do. Date rape, as we've seen in the Willie Kennedy Smith trial, is hard to prove. It's two people saying, the guy saying we had sex, the woman saying I was raped. And it's very hard, I think, for a jury to come in and say, she was raped, or they just had a rough round of sex.
This is a controversial issue, and there's a lot we could say about date rape, but we need to move right on. Richard, in your presentation on assault, I'd like for you to clarify the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony.
Well, basically, a felony is a very serious charge. It usually involves jail time at a state level or a federal penitentiary. A misdemeanor usually is just classified as a fine. Sometimes they'll be given a jail suspended sentence. A misdemeanor can be anything from a slap to verbal abuse, and felony may be as much as, well, it may even include negligent homicide.
All right, thank you. What about, I noticed you said there were so many reported crimes. Is there any way to estimate how many crimes go unreported?
Well, a lot of crimes do go unreported. That's usually because the system that we have will declassify it to a point to where there's not even a crime being committed. They go into a situation there where they call it plea bargaining. The occurrence did happen, but then in the minds of the officers and everything, that they've just declassified it as a crime.
Mm-hmm. Well, Richard, has anyone at Southern Arkansas University ever been suspended from the university for assault?
Not to my knowledge, they haven't, but that is a controversial issue in a lot of schools. There's two rounds of thinking on that. One round is simply that a person can be dismissed for acts of violence, and we all know that any kind of drug violations or anything like that is reason for suspension. The other round of thinking about that is the school has some kind of an obligation to train these citizens into society and make them a fit person and no longer prone to these violent acts.
There were some guys that were kicked off the baseball team a couple of years ago because they were just fighting all the time with different people, just going out and picking fights with people.
But they weren't kicked out of the university?
No, they were kicked off the team.
Diane, in your presentation, you said that 50% of reported crimes were drug and alcohol related. Does this include theft,
Yes.
rape, everything?
Mm-hmm. But I don't remember any rape cases being reported, but it was the theft and the burglary charges.
How do they determine that these crimes were drug and alcohol related?
I take it that they give the test. They give the alcohol breathalyzer. I'm not sure what test they give for the drugs.
It probably wouldn't be very obvious. You wouldn't have to test somebody to know anything.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
It depends on how much they've had.
so then if the person
I guess so.
has been drinking or has been taking drugs at the time of their arrest or at the time that this crime was committed, then they categorize that as drug and alcohol related.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, Diane, you had said in your report that crack was pretty prevalent here on campus because of the low cost. Is crack cheaper than marijuana or cocaine?
I'd say so for that type of high because I think that crack is cheaper than cocaine because it's a man-made substance. Cocaine is really cut by the time it gets to the streets. And I would think that the crack is cheaper.
Isn't crack a drug that they say if you do it one time, you're addicted?
They say that, but then there's arguments about that too.
Well, Diane, could you give us a little bit more information on Mike Walker?
Mike Walker, he heads the ADAPT program, and there's help provided through that program, drug and alcohol, and they have a number here on campus where he could be reached. The number is 235-4386.
Did I not pronounce his name right?
His name is Mark Walker.
Mark.
Mark.
Well,
It's
I'm
very,
sorry.
very accessible.
What
He
does
is indeed.
ADAPT stand for? The Drug and Alcohol Prevention Team?
Yes, that's it, Brandy.
Very good. All right, Mike. In your presentation, one thing you gave us were some tips for safety,
Yes.
and I think those need to be repeated.
Well, just basically, if you're walking along on campus at night, stay in groups. I mean, it'd be the same in daytime, but more than likely, violence is not going to occur in the daytime unless it's, somebody just brings it on themselves. But stay in groups. If you can't find anyone, if you're not with a group, ask somebody to walk with you. If you can't get anybody, you can call the Department of Public Safety at 4100, and they'll be glad to come down and escort the man or woman or group, it doesn't matter, to their car, their dorm, or wherever they're at going on campus. Also, it's good to know self-defense, but you can, if you can't learn that on campus, there's a Taekwondo school right down the street, and they offer those classes. It costs a little bit, but it's not very much, and I'd say it'd probably be worth it. Another thing is they make those keychains, those spikes, and you carry those. If you don't have those, you can just carry your regular car keys, and if somebody comes up to you, you have them like sticking between your fingers, and you just start scratching them with it. Another thing, when you're walking, if you're by yourself or not, make a lot of noise. A good thing would be carry a flashlight, and if you're going out to your car, look around your car before you get in, especially if you didn't lock the doors. Be sure you look inside your car to make sure nobody's in there, because somebody could be laying down in the back seat, or a lot of times they'll even get under the car. I mean, it'd be a good thing to get down on your hands and knees and look under the car.
It'd scare me to death if I saw someone in the
I know, that'd be terrible.
The preventive measures that have been taken on campus, the lights, weapons for the officers, training for the lobby monitors, I really was impressed with that. Do you believe that the new lighting will actually help prevent the crime?
Well, I don't know if you've ever been up here at night before, but it's pretty dark, and I think it will. It'll help to an extent, just because someone, if you're going to rob somebody, jump them from behind the building, or beat them up or anything, you're not going to do it, or you're less likely to do it if you're going to be seen, and you're less likely to be seen if it's in the dark. So I think the lighting will make a difference. The weapons, I don't know what difference that would make. It would certainly deter me. If I knew the police officers had guns, it would certainly deter me from trying to do anything. I'd be afraid of getting shot.
Right.
Well, Mike, if my car was broken into and something was stolen and I was go out at night and find it, where would I go to report this? Who would I report it to?
You can call the Department of Public Safety at 4100.
What if it was night and all the buildings were closed?
There's someone on duty.
Well, where is their office located?
The old armory, the Student Activities Building.
And there is someone on duty 24 hours a day?
No, well, there's someone in the office 24 hours a day. If the law enforcement officers aren't there, there will be some person in there taking phone calls who can contact them. They won't be law enforcement personnel, but they'll be there by the phone.
We have presented to you a realistic picture of crime on the SAU campus. We hope you know there is help if you are a victim. There are preventative measures being taken. Cooperation of staff and students is essential. We hope that the information you received today will strengthen your resolve to be neither a victim nor a perpetrator of violence. Thank you.